Right. So we'll go ahead and get started. There are only the 4 of us this evening, or in the morning, as in Pakistan time. So it's 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. Is that right?
Yeah,
6
o'clock.
6 o'clock. So you're going to have a long day. So this evening, we're going to have the 3 of you do your presentations. And the purpose of that is to have you share the information that you have uncovered in your delving into the literature on your selected concept. And then also give each other feedback, suggestions for anything that you would see could enhance it. You still have some time to incorporate things into your paper, or questions to clarify things, or things that you really liked about the presentation or the content. And then finally to practice your professional presentation skills. So we'll spend the majority of our time, which might not be very lengthy tonight since there's the 3 of you. Last night there were 6 people, so that took up almost all of our time together. But we probably won't be together all that long tonight. So we're going to have you plan to do your presentations. In just a few minutes, I'm going to show you or tell you where you can pull up your information and do that yourselves. But if you have any difficulty, I also have them ready to go so that we can have that expedited if you're having any technology issues with your presentations coming up from your end. Reminder that your presentations are 5 to 8 minutes long. And I will be grading your rubrics as you go. And then tomorrow I will post your grades and your rubric, as well as I'm recording the classes in Integrity, and I will post both of the links to the YouTubes that will have the classes. So if you wanted to see yourself and even critique your own presentation, or watch the other class and learn what their content was about, I think they found that it was very insightful to hear about the other educational concepts and how applicable they were across disciplines, even though their content was something that they had selected. So questions before we get started? I'm sorry, Laurel?
When someone else is talking, can we make sure that everything is muted? Because of my hearing impairedness, I get a lot of echo.
That's a good idea, and we need to do that for presentations anyway. So,
sure, good idea.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions or suggestions? Okay, so when it is your turn, and we'll just ask you to volunteer of whoever wants to go first. If you look at the to the right of your webcam pictures, there you might see a little cloud. You see a little cloud on your screen, like in this area right in here. Do you find the cloud? That's all you need to do. You don't need to click on it yet, but do you find the cloud? There's an emoticon right here, or an emoji. If you find the cloud, just select the thumbs up. And then whoops, I did away with.
I think she hit the log out because there's an arrow up there, but I don't see any cloud.
You don't see a cloud?
No. I have a microphone, a phone, and
is that at the top of the page? This is right next to the webcam pictures of down in the lower left.
Nope, I don't see a cloud down there either.
No one sees a cloud, huh?
Yeah, you're talking about where you can see our pictures? Yeah, there's no cloud.
To the right of that?
Nope, nothing.
Okay. Well, I have all of them pulled up, so we can go with those if you can't pull them up yourselves. And then we could just go in the order that I have them coming up. So, Vernetta, are you able to go ahead and do this if we're ready to get started?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you speak up a little louder?
Okay. Oh, yes, I can.
Okay, very good.
Is that better?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And then
Alrighty. Yes.
And then if you just say next, I'll advance your slides.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, we'll let you go ahead.
Again, all right, good evening, everyone, and Dr. Linden. Again, I'm Vernetta Kasolka, and I am presenting my hospitality student retention concept analysis. Could we advance the slide?
I don't know where my arrow went. Well, bummer, everything worked so nicely last night.
Well,
Is that it?
I did. I think I can.
Oh, you can. Okay, because you're the presenter. Okay, let's do it.
Okay. Well, more people than ever are chasing a dream of running a kitchen or flipping an omelet on television. The study of hospitality management and culinary arts is no longer just about making food to eat. It's about combining food safety, technical skills, and artistry to create things that please the mind, body, and soul. So the purpose of my concept analysis is that the hospitality industry is experiencing a trending decline in the retention of students in culinary arts programs. This decline may be in large part due to student persistence, recruitment, and admissions, and student feedback and satisfaction, and the student experience. The purpose of this concept analysis seeks to find what affects student retention at a local hospitality management and culinary arts program. I've identified 4 definitions that help me develop my educational concept. The first being by Burkholder, that he and the other authors define student retention as students who remained at the same institution where they started until they completed a program. The second definition is by Rudd and additional authors that stated that they further define retention as the fundamental ability of a university or college to carry out its mission. And the third definition focuses that research focusing on hospitality and leisure management education argues for greater cognizance of the relevance of student experiences with third-level education. Therefore, the current paper seeks to address the issue of student feedback and satisfaction measurement in light of recent proposals. The final definition by Vincent Pinto, he is a theorist that specializes in student retention in higher education. He defines the student retention as the rate at which an institution retains and graduates students who first enter the institution as a freshman at any given point in time. So after I've analyzed and really looked into those 4 definitions, I developed my own educational concept, being hospitality student retention is defined as students who remain at the same they started, enabling a college or university to carry out its mission, taking into consideration of student feedback and satisfaction measures. This educational concept studies the retention of hospitality students pursuing either culinary arts or hospitality management degree at a local college. I have identified 4 defining attributes that I feel are congruent with this definition, those focusing on student persistence, recruitment and admission, student feedback, the satisfaction, and the student experience. Antecedents of the concept that I have identified is again recruitment, then
Hmm.
finance. I feel that this concept analysis has identified that there are intrinsic as well as extrinsic rewards for improved hospitality student retention for students and faculty alike. Those being improved faculty engagement, increased informal student faculty interaction, enhanced social integration, and enriched university or college commitment. This is the model, the representation of the concept. And it is a cyclical model, one that I have adapted without permission from another study by Wallace Gulecki in 2009. But the top row focuses on that for student retention. It focuses that there's an emphasis in recruiting and marketing, orientation, building to classroom experience, building to co-curricular support, and building to degree and goal attainment. And then at the bottom of this process that is continuously working also is more so a focus on faculty, may that be leading from admission to offering financial aid, to providing learning support, to providing a campus that is safe and that takes into consideration the wellness of the students and faculty, and then leading on to affinity relationships beyond the college. So I feel that this representation in this cyclical manner is work from a student perspective as well as from a faculty perspective. So I have identified the references for this presentation. It's not all the references I've identified that is in our paper, but I am very confident with the work that I've done already, and I feel that this research will help move, give a new look at student retention, being things to consider, a possible study on the impact of millennials, what's important to millennials in making decisions, what's the current state, as well as there's limited information that gives a local perspective on how the industry is impacted here in the greater Omaha area. So this would be an interesting article that I think would help build programs and move this topic forward.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
So can each of you ask Vernetta either a question or offer a comment? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Vernetta. As you know, I was asked to do your critique on your concept analysis, and you also, did a favor to me, and that is why I'm a little familiar with your concept. And I found it, in fact, very interesting because we face similar issues in the context of postgraduate education in medical education as well. Mm-hmm. And there we call it the problem of dropout instead of retention.
Right.
And that is why, and that is why I in one of my comments, I suggested, would you like to look at it from dropout point of view?
Right. Well, attrition and retention are two separate things. And so I appreciated your feedback, Amina. It was great, and it's so good to see you tonight. And so I focused on retention. What is what is needed to keep the student in school? How do we engage the student? And how do we improve the student experience? How do we improve their value of the education that they receive at the institution that they choose? And then how could the institution provide an environment? So when I thought about your feedback, Amina, I thought about persistence. And so that is the student kind of motivation to push their education forward, to reach their personal and professional goals. And so I wanted to include persistence since that was moving forward with retaining instead of attrition, which is the focus of how many students have left. So I did.
This is so interesting.
Yeah. Your feedback and Patty's feedback made a big difference.
It's flip side of the coin, in fact.
Yeah. Thank you, Amina.
Thank you.
Okay, so my concern, I don't have a concern, but what I think is valuable about this particular research is I know her focus is on hospitality student retention, but I do believe that the retention analysis that she did it would benefit all higher education, because we all are looking at retention as a possibility to do more research in higher ed. PK through 12 probably wouldn't have that big of a problem, but business related courses in general. So I think some of her focus, like when she's talking about future research, she can also kind of add the piece that this will be work in all higher ed, as well as business related courses, as well as culinary arts. So that I don't have a question. I just had comments in that regards, because I think retention is on everybody's mind when it comes to how do we keep that retention at all levels in higher ed, not just particularly hospitality.
You bring up a very good point, Laurel, and it's something that Dr. Linden and I talked about is, the possibility, Dr. Linden, when you asked me, is this a topic you want to focus on for your dissertation? And I spoke about making it broader to just higher ed retention instead of a focus on hospitality or culinary arts. So I feel that in the long term, personally and professionally, that'll help me, but I think I'll be able to add another brick to this puzzle if I focus on student retention as a whole. So I agree with you. Thank you, Laurel.
I also think that if you focus on retention specifically, you would find more resources in regards to being able to back up the research that you've already done, and it will just benefit your research even more, I think.
Right, because when you mention the two cycles, the representation, there are two areas that I do want to focus on, being wellness and campus life and affinity. And I feel like I would get more information if I were to be broader with retention, student retention, or higher education, period. So thank you. Yes.
You are now muted.
The challenge,
we can't hear you, Dr. Linden.
You are now unmuted. You are now muted. You are now unmuted.
The challenge, I think, always is to, when you get closer to actually working on your research proposal, is to decide how broad or how focused you want to be in the topic. And sometimes, that varies for individuals. Sometimes people want to look at that in a broad sense. The challenge sometimes there is that there can be already these theorists who have done a lot of that work. So sometimes taking it down into your specialty can offer something in your particular profession. However, there's always that building on a theorist's work and expanding on it. So there's no right or wrong to that. It's just always an interesting focus on either the very, very specific context or on a broader context. And either of them can apply to any of your work. So it'll be interesting to see what direction you go, Bernetta.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Linden. You bring up a very valid point that, the pros and cons of staying small or going broad. So thank you.
And the other thing is sometimes we change our own focus in our careers, And sometimes by being very, very specific, we might be limiting ourselves, but also on the other hand, it can offer something in that specific discipline. So I think it'll be fun to see what direction you actually go. Thank you. That was very nicely done. I think in particular that your work with that visual representation will be something that you'll be able to probably continue to work with and add to or refine as you go, or build on what's already there possibly. Just it's a nice complex one, and yet it's clear, I think, in what it's talking about. So it's easy to understand from my perspective, I think.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Linden. You really helped with thank you. I feel like I really learned in this module, so I really appreciate what you taught us.
Good. So let's just see what comes up when we take this. I have those this didn't happen the other day when I brought them up. There we go.
Oh, okay, very good. Okay.
Where are the other ones I loaded? This is acting a little differently than it did last night, which is odd because I had all 6 things loaded last night and didn't have any trouble with them. Very odd. I'm afraid I'll lose people.
Do you think, Dr. Linden, if you were to pick somebody else as the presenter, maybe their paper might come up, or it might give the option for you to change?
Good idea. Thank you.
You're welcome. I've never used this at all.
I can see the emoji. So would you like me to upload my presentation, or whatever you suggest?
Yes, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Very odd. So you should be able to select your file and then upload your file. There we go.
Yeah.
I must have to give you the presenter option before that comes up for you.
I think it's here. I can see it. For instance, I can see the option of moving on to the next slide. So
can you see it now?
Yes, for instance, I can move my slide.
Excellent. Okay. That's great. So whenever you feel like you're ready, we will let you begin.
Okay, let's start. Hi everyone, I'm Amina, and I'm here to present my concept on effective leadership in health professions education context. The aim of my concept, effective leadership in health professions education context, is basically to explore those unique challenges which leaders in health professions education face. And they're considered to be quite different from the specification and complexities of the corporate world. And that is why I just wanted to see how they are different and what exactly is different. And the other aim is that because of my educational and professional background, it's not very difficult for me to identify effective leadership vacuum in the profession. And that also provides me a reason to look into this concept so that I can suggest a few measures to improve leadership in our context. When it comes to the analysis of the concept, I learned quite a few things.
Now muted.
As I said earlier, I wanted to see how this concept is different, but at the same time I also found out through literature that effective leadership in HP, that is health professions education context, is quite similar to the general leadership context as well, because it requires honesty, innovation, emotional and cognitive regulation, initiative and drive, ability to motivate others, the capacity to articulate a vision and achieve it as well, just like what happens in other contexts. But unlike the corporate sector, HPE is recognized as a complex adaptive system. The complex adaptive system is quite unique because what happens that in such a system, every professional who is working is performing in a very independent capacity and is taking decisions on his or her own. And as a result of those decisions, the other professional is inevitably affected. So as a result, the leaders who are working in this context, they have to face a situation which is constantly evolving, and he or she has to face a lot of ambiguity, which obviously makes it very different from other contexts. As a result of literature review, I came up with many definitions. And finally, I formulated my own definition. And according to that definition, effective leadership is basically creativity. It's challenging old systems, seeking new opportunities, and motivating others to join hands for materialization of leaders' vision. But on the other hand, when it comes to the health professions education context, it is also effective. It is all about, rapport building, and that should be done very quickly to establish credibility with academicians, clinicians, healthcare managers who have different educational backgrounds and have a conflicting value system through effective self-regulation, interpersonal skills, and management capabilities. The literature review enabled me to share with you the model which I have developed to present here. And this literature review enabled me to pinpoint those antecedents which in fact have led to the identification of those particular attributes which are needed for effective leadership. The antecedents which I have identified are pace of changing medical information and delivery, changing societal expectations from the profession, and then the omnipresent desire to achieve excellence in the profession, and finally accountability, which is rising. And you all can identify with this particular phenomenon of accountability for health professions educationists. And these antecedents have led to the identification of attributes which should be there in effective leaders, and they are stability and firmness in the face of a lot of ambiguity. The leader needs to be self-regulated learner. He or she should be able to immerse him or herself in the practice. Sure. So the person should engage in practice-based leadership learning. He or she should be honest, should have very good interpersonal skills and management capabilities. And if these attributes are present in an individual who is leading this particular context, the desirable consequences are achieving results, organizational success, and societal satisfaction. So these are some of the references which I have consulted for this concept analysis. The first two references are primary sources, which have enabled me to identify all these attributes, antecedents, and the consequences as well. Thank you so much. Any questions?
You are now unmuted.
My only question that I have is in your definition, you're talking about old systems, and for someone who doesn't know anything about your background or the subject matter, wouldn't know what those old systems would be. So can you clarify what old systems mean?
Yeah, definitely. And it's a very good point that you have identified. Old systems are basically when you are living in a status quo. So in these organizations, the leadership style is quite different and is very autocratic. The leader is saying that do this and do that. And they, in fact, are not very good self-regulated learners as well. And in addition to that, they would not, listen to what the stakeholders are desiring. So as a result of all such attitudes in a leader, it becomes very difficult for those who are working under them and those who have, their vested interest in such a system, for instance, patients and students, to communicate their reservation to the leader. So leader needs to be, should come down to the level of the stakeholders and should let them participate, should be very empathetic towards them, and should immerse him or herself in the practice of leadership. And that is how I believe the leader would be able to learn about their concerns, the stakeholders' concern, and would bring about change, the desirable change in the system. Thank you. Does it answer your question?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Amina. Thank you. No, I just wanted to compliment you on just, I guess, in the same way how Laurel mentioned, making it broader, that I feel like for your concept, you have broader information that could relate to executive leadership or leadership in a whole, and so I'm glad that you have a more of a natural tone to find additional, more pool for literature review to add to your research for your dissertation, because the two are the same, and you're going to focus in and hone in on medicine. And so I know that I remember where you started from when we first, started this process, and to see your growth in your organization is really well. So I just want to let you know, job well done. And I think you'll be able to add more depth as you work towards your dissertation.
Thank you for your valuable feedback. Yes, I agree with you.
So, Amina, I have one question. The term conflicting value system, can you either give an example or elaborate on what that might look like?
Well, personally, what I witness every now and then is that, for instance, one of the professional who is working under the leadership of such a leader finds something really good. For instance, if you consider the example of a hospital, there's a consultant who is leading a team, and he or she finds an approach of dealing with a patient very appropriate. But on the other hand, what I practically witness that the person who is next to him or her would find it not really good. Mm-hmm. And same is applicable to the nurse who is working under his leadership. She would, think that at times this leader is not taking decisions which are best for the patient. So all these individuals have their own value system, mm-hmm. Vis-a-vis patient handling or dealing with the students. And it entirely depends on individuals' belief system and the educational background. Since the educational background is quite variable, some of these professionals are foreign trained, some of these professionals, they're trained in the local context as well. So there's a broad range of values that you can see all the time. And that value system is so different from one another, and everyone is imposing his or her belief system on the other, and is considering whatever he or she is thinking is absolutely correct. This is what it means.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were thinking there. Well, thank you very much. Any other comments from anyone? Okay, so then we'll have Laurel.
You are now muted.
I want to make sure that this is it. I'm going to go through real quick.
Okay, oops. That's fine.
I just wanted to make sure that I don't know how to do this, and this is my first time doing it. All right, so my specific concept was on first-generation college students, and I'm Laurel Mitchell. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an outline of what I'm going to cover. So I'm going to give you the quoted definitions, and then my definitions that kind of combines with the purposes that kind of goes into the categories that I have selected for this particular concept analysis. And then I also have my concept analysis model that has the attributes, the antecedents, and the consequences. So my quoted definitions, they're pretty similar across the board. I think I used 7 to 8, maybe 10 different references. So a student whose parents have earned a high school diploma or less, whose parents had no college or post-secondary experiences, individuals whose parents experienced little to no time in college, and then those whose parents did not graduate from college. And the last one that I'm showing you here is one for whom neither parent had completed a college degree or neither parent had any type of post-secondary education, which, like I said, they're kind of focused a lot individually, but I'm going to go ahead and give you my specific definition. So the purpose of this educational concept analysis is to identify that first-generation college students are defined as any students whose parents have had who has not had any post-secondary education. And what else I also did is I also identified the differences and similarities between three separate categories. And those three separate categories are defined as student athletes, traditional students, and non-traditional students. I noticed that in my research that it only specifically talked about either traditional or non-traditional, but did not even combine traditional or non-traditional, and student athletes weren't even looking into that. They are a traditional student, but they're based off of the different things that I looked at, they have different motivations and different reasons why they're going to school versus the traditional and the non-traditional students. So in my education, in my concept analysis model, what I did for the first generation college students is I actually divided all the attributes between all three of those categories. And so the first one is motivation. So for example, the motivation of a student athlete would be more like they want to be able to play their sport at a collegiate level. Traditional student, obviously they'll probably want to keep their scholarships and things like that. And so their motivation is going to be a little bit different. And then a non-traditional student is considered someone who is 25 years or older, maybe a single parent or a person with children. And they also have different motivations because they're looking at career advancement and so forth and so on. But I'm not going to divide each one into the attributes. I wanted to just do the motivation so you can kind of see how these three different categories kind of get divided between all the different attributes, the antecedents and the consequences. So let's continue with the attributes. I also did academic performance between those three categories, academic support and advising, teacher and professor encouragement. My antecedents are pre-college characteristics and behaviors, support systems and networks, and then the balancing of commitments. Again, between the three categories, obviously that's going to be a lot of different commitments based off of what category you fall in. My consequences are external rewards, student retention, which kind of falls behind what Vernetta was talking about, also reflective coping and self-motivation. And then the last one is college completion, goal achievement, which obviously the ultimate goal is graduation. Okay. And so for an overview, again, like I said, the first generation college students, I actually presented with 5 different quotes that I found because I wanted to kind of show you that even though there was a lot of different definitions, they all pretty much meant the same. And I just wanted to focus on those parents who had not any college experience, because when I first started to do this particular first generation college student, I thought I fell into it because my parents did not go to college until I was in middle school or high school. Of course, I went into my definition, the different categories, putting through the antecedents, the attributes, and the consequences between the student athlete, the traditional, and the non-traditional students. Was very, very important to me because, like I said, there's no research out there that puts all three of these categories together. And by putting them in together, I thought that maybe I would be able to provide some type of existence for what I want to do and probably benefit higher ed altogether in regards to separating those three categories. And these are the references I have. So, like I said, a lot of them are pretty much my primary ones, and then I have a couple of secondary ones that I just wanted to back up my original thoughts. And if you have any questions, I guess this will be where you ask.
Sorry, I just took a bite of a protein bar. I'm so sorry. But, I mean, if you wanted to go before me, that would be great. I'm so sorry.
I found your concept very interesting because, talking about first generation college students is something which I could not imagine that you could, identify in America as a potential concept to be explored. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. I thought it was more relevant to developing countries because of the reason that I thought that people have more opportunities in the Western countries, the more developed countries, and you would hardly find any first-generation college students. So it was kind of a surprise for me, but I found it very interesting.
For example, the university where I work, we have open enrollment. Graduate level students don't take the GMAT. Undergraduate students do not have to worry about their scores in the ACT or their SAT. So we find that first generation college student is very prominent at our university, which was another reason as to why I wanted to do this particular topic. And again, like I said at the beginning, I thought maybe I had fallen into it, but based off of my research, I didn't, because my mother did receive her nursing degree while I was at the beginning of my high school career, and then my father had taken some college classes because he really liked computers, because I grew up before the computers were even involved, and so he was really interested in learning things. So that was why I thought I originally had fallen into it, but based off of the definitions, I did not. And like I said, I actually had asked my traditional students just recently which one of them, I just asked a general question, who of you are first generation college students? And I had about 3 or 4 raise their hands. And then I kind of noticed that one of them was a student athlete, 2 of them were traditional students, and 1 of them was a non-traditional student. And this is a daytime class, so we don't have a lot of non-traditional students in this particular class. So I kind of realized that, each one of them have their own motivation as to why they want to pursue a degree. So, and that's I think that's another reason why I divided it, and specifically the student athletes, because the student athletes have these different motivations and different reasons on why they're going to school other than the regular traditional student or a non-traditional student. So that's the reason why I wanted to separate those 3 categories. But thank you for your comments. Mm-hmm.
Well, Laurel, I think I like your topic. I feel that the information is needed. And I mean, I am a first generation. I was the first to graduate college in my family, in my immediate family, and pursue everything that I'm pursuing. I'm kind of the oddball. And I was thankful and blessed that I chose College of St. Mary for undergrad, moving from South Carolina to Nebraska. And so I felt I had a great support system. And I wish I would have had some more family that I could relate to and ask questions to, but at least my family gave me good support on how to handle social situations. But academically, I was on my own, and financially, I was on my own, but yet they were there to support me emotionally in social things. But so I feel like your research could really help other professors and academics understand what these students face, as well as additional information for these students, so that maybe this could break into training. Who knows what it could do, so that colleges could become aware of what's needed for students. So I think that it's a very good topic, and it is interesting, and it's thankful that we can focus on such a topic. So I agree with what you said and where you're going.
Thank you for your comments, Vanetta. So another reason why I had also did this is because when I graduated high school, my option was either go to college and have my parents pay for it at a community college, or join the military and pay for it myself. And so what I had decided going through high school is that I wanted to go into the military, and my focus was going to be attending school. Now I can tell you that trying to do a full-time job in a foreign country and it being all on my own, it was very difficult. It took me 11 years to complete my associate's degree. And that was just basically going to 13 different high school or colleges and universities and putting them into what we call the Community College of the Air Force. And we were lucky. I was lucky because all of my training and all of the college that I had gone to kind of solidified that I was able to get a degree. Now, once I got my associate's degree, I continued on with my bachelor's and, my master's and my other master's. And then, so like I said, I thought that based off of the research, I thought maybe my son may have fallen into the first generation college student because he actually went to school as a traditional student. But I actually fell under the topic of a non-traditional student, but not until I reached the age of 25. Prior to that, with all the little classes that I took here, there, and everywhere, I actually was considered a traditional student because I fell underneath, the age of 25. But I was sitting in the classroom in my uniform most of the time. And I can remember when my son was born and I had problems with daycare, and I would bring my child to class and we sit in the back of the classroom, and the teacher was fine with that. So like I said, there was a lot of other reasons behind why I did this. But I think that the topic has really generated me, and I can see being able to carry on with this topic in the future for my dissertation, and maybe even adding the adult learning theory in that place as well. So thank you for both of you.
When Laurel and I were discussing this, I said that I think she really tripped onto something, or maybe tripped isn't the word. Her educated analysis really came across that those different motivations are really important, and I think that in itself could be a huge asset to this major concept, so that first generation students, and looking at their individual motivations or those groups, those three different groups, has a lot of potential. So I think that's very exciting. Either for your dissertation itself, or in addition to or separate from your dissertation, because that I think resonates with a good categorization of looking at how this applies to different groups of people.
Tripped on, stumbled on, I think they're all the great terms, because I basically did stumble on them because I wasn't sure what I was going to do with the information. And I mean, I took a lot of times where I was just putting it in my head and going through like, what am I going to do? How am I going to proceed? And then, I'm very, very passionate about student athletes, not just at Bellevue University, but, my nephew is a student athlete at Creighton, and, and even here at the high school level, they don't allow our students to really set themselves up in a positive manner when they go to college. And so all of that kind of resonated into why I wanted to choose this topic. So like I said, it was just, I stumbled upon the three categories. And like I said, I didn't know, I figured if I was wrong, you would tell me. And if I wasn't wrong, I figured I was okay. And I made them up. Well, obviously I didn't make up the categories, but I made up the fact that I was going to divide up three categories. So thank you for your feedback, Dr. Linden.
Yes, and that was a good game he had on Saturday, or was it Saturday that game? Yes, I thought of you.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, my nephew does play for Creighton, so yeah, it's exciting. So,
very exciting.
And yeah, their final home game is tomorrow night. So, and it'll probably be the last time he plays, even though he's a junior. So, yeah. So, thank you. Yeah, and I got the cloud. It worked. I don't know.
I think I must have to give you the presenter icon, and then it comes up for you as how that must be. So that was Vernetta helped to get us through that little glitch. So thank you, Vernetta. So let's just capitalize on a look back, or a little reflection on the concept analysis process. And right here below the list of names, there are the emojis. And so if you would just think about those first couple of weeks of doing a concept analysis, and put up next to your name an emoji that would reflect how you felt during those first couple of weeks of working on your concept analysis. Do you see that, Amina?
No, I can't.
Right below our names, do you see the little smiley face?
There isn't any.
There isn't a smiley face,
It
huh?
was there. No. It was there. Yeah, of course. Now I can see it. Yes.
So there's a little list of items there, and you can pick which one there.
Yeah.
So
Initially, I was very confused. But
so
now I'm not.
what was the confusion at the beginning?
Beginning of this work,
Yes.
when we started off,
Mm-hmm.
as I told you earlier, that I was more familiar with the theoretical framework, developing a theoretical framework, which is obviously much broader than the conceptual framework. I was finding it difficult to narrow down my thoughts to one focus. But obviously, I mean, the literature that you provided and the feedback, they were very helpful. And finally, I figured it out how to, narrow down my focus and then develop a conceptual framework around it.
Okay, good. Thank you. So last night, all 6 people put confused up. So you were with that group. So that's interesting. That Vernetta, you have a smile. So how was that the first couple of weeks for you that made that a smile?
Oh, is that the question? We kind of didn't hear the initial question because I was trying to find the smiley face. But I will tell you, I was happy. I was happy because I felt confident that I understood the ROL. And so I was very pleased and I felt very confident. And then as I started getting, as more assignments came, that's when I started to get puzzled and confused. But
so
I
yours
got back on track.
Yours went a little roller coaster?
A little roller coaster,
Uh-huh.
and that also was a busy time for my business around Valentine's with my flower shop. So I think I just got off.
Sure,
But,
sure.
I got back on the course and I was happy at the beginning.
Very funny. Laurel, how about you?
I knew about the ROL matrix at the beginning. I kind of had an idea what was going on. It was more so a roller coaster ride, just like Vernetta, because when I started putting the attributes and the antecedents and the consequences, I had a little bit of a confusion at the time. And like I told you in our meeting the other day, it would have been nice to have the information from weeks 5 and 6 moved up to weeks 1 and 2, because once I saw those videos, well, didn't see them, I read the videos, and I finally, it kind of the light bulb finally came on, like, oh, okay, I get it now. And so, like, it's kind of like a roller coaster. I kind of knew what I was doing, but then it seemed like I didn't know what I was doing. And then with that extra instruction, I really felt really, really confident, especially going into this last few assignments. I really, really felt confident about the 3 different things. And at the beginning, I thought we only had to select like a specific quote. I didn't realize that the quote had to reflect around our definition, or the definition from that particular study. So obviously I figured that one out too. So
Okay, good. So then do the same thing, but this time how you feel now at the end of, or towards the end of doing the concept analysis. What kind of
oh crap.
what kind of emotion would be reflective of your current thoughts about the concept analysis process?
I'm really happy, just like Vernetta, and I feel like clapping, but I instead have,
Thumbs up.
selected the small face.
Oh, yes, the smiley face. Okay. Laurel, how about you? You sort of said that already, but...
Yeah, I kind of wanted to dance up and down, but then I don't have that option. That's why I gave it a thumbs up.
Okay. Dancing's good. Vernetta, how about you?
I just feel so happy. I think we've come a long way. I know I've grown in my writing and APA, and everyone's been very helpful with giving me good advice. So I really feel like I got this. Like, I'm ready for the next classes. I started kind of late in the game in August, and then I took 2 prerequisite classes. So I had a lot going on in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So this is great to go. This is just a really good start for the second quarter. So I can't thank you guys enough for everything.
Oh, good. So then the last reflection is about the concept that you chose, the educational concept that you selected. Do you feel like you have a grasp on it that's any different than you had before? Is it that you understand it better than you did? You think now that there's so much that you can't even begin to grasp it? Where are you with the educational concept itself and how you feel about it?
Oh, I didn't realize I was on. Yes, emotion.
So, Vernetta, how do you feel about? Do you see yourself continuing to work in this area?
I do. I feel I have more defined, refined tools on how to approach this. So identifying my own definition, how I'm going to contribute to this topic and help out in this area is huge. And you teaching us the importance of identifying the antecedents, the attributes, antecedents, and the consequences really is, I feel like I'm ready for our next class when we get into qualitative research to start kind of practicing with that research, with the focus now that you've created for us. So I didn't know about a concept analysis before, but I feel like I could really have good conversations with the assistant dean, with my colleagues, and I just feel like I have good tools now going forward.
Good. So you think you might use this same topic for the qualitative class?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How about the other two of you? What are your thoughts? Whoever wants to go.
Well, same is the case with me. I feel more confident and much more focused, and would love to continue with the same concept.
Okay, good. And Laurel, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to continue with this topic. I'm actually taking one of the prerequisites at the same time, the second part of this semester. So I think it's a mixed method class, and so but like I said, I'm going to add to this particular concept because I do want to include the adult learning theory, because I have been a very passionate. When I did my first PhD, I did adult education and online development, and I still think that I want to get that piece in there in addition to staying with the first generation college students, and I think it'll work. And as I further my research into the adult learning theory, we'll see whether it works or not. But I think I have a lot to offer for this particular subject, and hopefully provide some future reference, not just in qualitative, but in quantitative, because I would really like to back up a lot of what I've said by quantitative methods as well. Mm-hmm. And I believe that class is in the summer.
Correct.
Quantitative, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So I think the three of you, and in fact the whole class, has done an outstanding job. I said that last evening too to the group. I think that some of the best work I have seen in this class, it's, a 1 credit and it's a lot of work, but the outcome has been stellar. I am very impressed by the dedication of all of you in the class. And so I see that you have huge potential for carrying on these same topics or in anything you plan to go ahead and do. When Laurel, you were talking about the adult learning theory, you will always have some kind of a theoretical or conceptual model or that you will incorporate into your dissertation as well. So these sort of go hand in hand, and it might be that you'll select one down the road that varies, but you'll always want to make sure you're keeping your eyes abreast for a theoretical framework or a theoretical model that supports the concept that you're working with as well. So do any of you have questions about the class at this point in the completion of the work? I think your paper is due next Sunday. Any questions about that?
No, I don't think I do.
Okay. And then
go ahead. Between today and the feedback we got on Friday, I think it was very beneficial, and I made all the adjustments I can, and I did do some further research to turn a couple of negatives into positives. So.
Any questions about next class, the qualitative class?
Yeah, Renetta was just asking me if there's a book, if there is a book for that particular class, and I already got it.
It's
Creswell.
Yes,
Creswell.
Cresswell.
Yeah, it's one of his. Yeah, he's got a few of them out there. So
Very good.
Yeah, it's the qualitative book that by Cresswell. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's got that, but there's an older version of it too. So just make sure you get the 2008 version because there's a lot of difference between the two versions.
Yeah, it's the brand new one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I think that's all we need to do then this evening. You did very well with your presentations. They were very professionally done. And I could tell that you had a very strong grasp of the concept analysis process. So I think it was very enlightening to hear all three of you present. And I think it's nice when you can learn from each other that way as well. So if there's nothing else, we'll say goodbye instead of good night, so that you can have a nice day ahead of you. And the rest of us, I guess, will get ready to go to bed. So, okay? So,
okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, goodbye.
I know. What's that? What is that?
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Good evening,
Bye.
Amanda.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.